See, it would get rid of that 6,000 if I used it. Unroll Me is an app that helps you unsubscribe to email lists that you don't want to be subscribed to anymore. So yeah, there's 200 notifications telling me, you don't ever read this email, you should unsubscribe. I need to. Let me help you. Yeah. Hey, I got my desk cleaned off this week. Yeah. Hey, people out there, get inside.
I'm in the office on Tuesday, so I'm sure by Tuesday it'll be filled back up with
JD,
stuff again.
tell everybody out there to come in.
I don't think he's listening to you.
Yeah, I don't think he heard me.
I don't think so. Hey, John. Oh, he's done. Do what you're doing then.
Yeah. Spank him, John. Don't just smile at him and tell him to get in. Spank him.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell people that often. Use me. Just say I said so. Sometimes it works with some people. Other times it's like, don't mention that I wanted this, because they'll ignore you if they know that I said it. All right. Well, this morning we're getting near the end of this 6 weeks of the church being the church. And so today, if we have time, we'd like to open it up for some questions. If not, we'll do that next week. But today we want to talk about just this, what we've titled is, why do we do what we do at Crossroads? If you've come to Crossroads from another church background, you went to a different kind of church. Just before we started, Ted and I were talking about churches we grew up in and different things. We've been talking about Sunday school offerings and what those were used for. If you come from a different church background, or you don't come from any church background at all, sometimes it may be confusing to figure out what we're doing and why we do it. And so we just wanted to spend this morning talking about, if there's one word we use a lot, we use the word intentional a lot. We are very intentional about what we do. I'm very intentional when I choose my words. I choose my words very intentionally, very carefully. When I preach, I'm very intentional in the way we word things, in announcements and those kinds of things. We're very intentional about those things, but we're very intentional about a lot of things, and why we do what we do. What drives our ministry here at Crossroads? And so this morning, the format we're going to kind of use is really just kind of an organic conversation. We've got some talking points, but we're just going to kind of, have an organic conversation about things that we're intentional about. I've got my phone screen up on the screen right now. Let's just talk first of all. It's farther down the list, guys. I moved it somehow. But one of the things we're very intentional about is communication. We're very intentional about communication. So, and one of the things we do in intentional communication is we're trying to make it as simple as possible for you, the partner, the regular attender here at Crossroads, to know where to find stuff, to know how to find stuff. We've even, if you go into any of the bathrooms today, you'll find a little thing on the window that says, are you tired of missing out, tired of not knowing what's going on, tired of having to ask somebody else about what's going on? And what we're really driving at is that Church Center is the place to find it. One of two places you can find almost anything relating to our church that we think you need to know, or that you think you need to know, is in Church Center or on our website. And so we do hear a lot of times people say, oh, I didn't see that message in Church Center, or oh, I haven't been in Church Center in a while. And so I'm even very intentional about the placement of Church Center on my screen. As you can see, it's I place things on my screen according to my thumb. And so I have Church Center right there. It is one of the apps that I do pay attention to, the little red notification button. One of the very few apps I pay attention to, that and my messages, but I pay attention to it. But if you don't have Church Center downloaded, download Church Center. It is Just Church Center has it all. And so if you open up the app, it should open up to your home screen, or it opens up to the last screen you had it open to. And even in this, that doesn't show up very, very well up there with the green lettering, does it? Even in this, sometimes people, we talk about our mission statement. I'll even use this leveraging who we are and what we've been given. If you're ever wondering, that's right there on your home screen. If you're, what is that Daryl says, leveraging who we are and what? It's right there on your home screen, because I think it's important. It's one of the most important things we talk about, helping people find and follow Jesus, and that ties into our love, live, serve. We're leveraging who we are and what we've been given to reach our neighbors, our city, and our world with the gospel, so that others may hear and live. They're right there at the top for you to be able to see. The important links section, again, I think if you're ever going, I saw that in the announcement somewhere, go to the home screen of our Church Center. Right there's the Wednesday Over the Hump. If you click it, it automatically opens Over the Hump, and you can scroll down through it. I used my phone so that you could see some of these images. If you're using it on your phone, like the offering report, you can always, zoom in and zoom out to see things if the images are small. So those links are there for you. The Friday C2 Essentials, almost all the announcements are in one of those two, Over the Hump or the C2 Essentials. Over the Hump, you'll also find in that one, you'll find that it's just kind of midweek reminders, and so it's, we're having midweek, the midweek dinner, the Kids for Christ, and then, are you using your spiritual gifts? There's always an offering report. And then as you get to the bottom of before you get to the bottom, on Wednesday, we highlight a global partner. There's a link to their missions letter there, telling you how you can pray for them. And then also the link to the page for all of our missionaries. How you can pray for your church family. That links you to the page that has all of our current prayer requests that have been submitted by our people. Praying over C2 corporately, we've got an extensive prayer list of how you can pray for your church, the people of your church, our outreach, our missionaries, those things. There's usually always a section on your children, teaching your children to pray. Again, because we're very intentional, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, about involving and engaging our children. And then when you get down to this part on all the newsletters, they're all going to be very similar. All three newsletters, Over the Hump, the Essentials, and what we've renamed the Sunday morning announcements, the Link, because there's not a lot of announcements in the Sunday morning announcements. So we've renamed it the Link. But all three of these, you'll see the same things. Some upcoming events, and then you'll see on all three, save these important dates. We do that for things even like when we get to Christmas and we're doing, the Well Christmas edition. A lot of times people say, I wish I'd have known we were doing that because we've already scheduled this. We have told you 10 months in advance at least when the well service is before Christmas, when the well service is before Thanksgiving. And so use those things. Utilize those things to mark your calendars. And then some great tools to use in your personal walk. Download Church Center, that's one of the biggest. Facebook, our Instagram page, that's our Facebook group, not our Facebook page. If you're interested in joining our Facebook group or Instagram, a lot of times people say, hey, what's our YouTube channel? It's at the bottom of every single newsletter. There's a link to our YouTube channel. People ask, how do I get the Dwell app? There's a link at the bottom of every single newsletter to get to the Dwell app. The Right Now Media, which is a free service to you. We spend a good amount of money for you to have basically a Netflix of Bible studies. Over 10,000, 15,000 different Bible studies, some geared toward children, some geared toward adults, some geared toward married, some geared toward singles. Just a plethora of things that you can either use in your personal devotions, in your family devotions, or use as a group. It's not my preference that we use video curriculum often. It's also not my preference or our preference that you study a book. Last year we did Not God Enough. I'm okay with that. I'm not against it. I would rather our life groups dig into the Word. If you're going to do a book, that should be an exception. But then get back to the Word. And that book should be saturated with the Word if you're going to read a book together. That was free. If you're looking for a group, there's a group finder. And then this section is at the bottom of every single newsletter that will go out to the church. Our website, our email address, our address, our mailing address, Sharon and mine, Michael and Summers, Daniel and Kristen's phone numbers, email addresses. I even put a link if you're wanting to schedule an appointment with me. There's a link there that you can click and you can see my calendar and find an appointment time that works for you. And then I get notified that you've made an appointment, we meet, and everybody's happy. And we don't play this game back and forth. I don't know what's good for you. I don't know, well, what's good for you? And we should get together sometime. I'm terrible about that. I'm the worst. Anybody ever played that game with me for like 3, 4, 5 months in advance? Yeah, hey, we should get together. Yeah, we should. Hey, let's do that. Let's get together and talk about that. I've just created a link so you can put a spot on my calendar. That's in there. That's at the bottom of every newsletter. Our office hours, again, another link on how to schedule an appointment with me, giving you some insight as to Pastor Daniel's schedule, Michael's schedule, Bonnie's schedule, everyone, and then just kind of gives you information there. That's there. And then, of course, that connect with us is at the bottom of every newsletter. But if you're ever wondering, where's the newsletter? How do I get to the newsletter? The home screen of Church Center. And then the kids ministry resources, where we link today's resources used for you as parents to go back and look at those resources. That's in there. A link to our missions page to see all of our missionary letters. That's in there. And then the Stay Connected, our website, our YouTube channel, our private Facebook group, our public Facebook page, our Twitter feed, our Instagram, church service times. What time does service start again? Go to Church Center, right? Contact information. Once again, if you want to call Daniel, click the link, text or call Daniel, and it'll open it up right on your phone to call him. I don't remember Daniel's number. It's right in where? Church Center, absolutely. The church address, if you've forgotten how to get here, you can open it up in Apple Maps. You can open it up in Google Maps. All of those links. That homepage is the end-all to beat-all. And then every one of those things are also on our website. So you can go to directionforyourliving.com and find any of those things as well. The easiest place is Church Center, and we're trying to put all of our registrations, all of our signups, all those things in Church Center, because if you want to know information, we have a place where you can find it. You don't have to call anybody. You don't have to ask anybody. Go to Church Center. Church Center has it all. Does that make sense? Yeah, people are down on what they're not up on. We try to make sure that you're up on everything. And we'll try to drive all of the new content to the tops of the newsletters, but also give you the confidence of knowing all those other things that you're like, oh, what was that? I forgot. It's at the bottom, somewhere at the bottom. You do not have to scroll through every newsletter from top to bottom. The bottom half is stuff you've already all seen before. It's just there in case you need it. Make sense? Sweet. Very cool. All right, somebody else talk for a while.
Well, we're going to take a few minutes here and just talk about, like I said at the beginning, talk about why we do the things that we do at Crossroads. Why do we use the curriculum that we use? Why do we emphasize the things that we emphasize? Why do we have kids come in here on Sunday mornings? Things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and just start off by talking a little bit about just our small groups. Really everything that we do is oriented around this idea of natural, organic discipleship and growth together as a body and as a family. And so when it comes to small groups, one of the things that we have really learned over the years and really have started to work towards is just this idea that small groups are intended to help individuals stay connected to the body. And so most of our groups are kind of in one of two camps. One of them is a natural just outflow of the body where you've got multiple generations, the older and the younger. You've got men and women, maybe even kids involved, all in this small group. And that's honestly probably our most ideal version of a small group. But then there's this other camp that's more demographic based. So we've got like MOPS or DOPS, or we've also got other men's and women's groups. And those are really useful too for other reasons. The main one being it's really easy to, I was telling Daryl the other day, I think for me personally, I tend to get that multi-generational wisdom when I'm here on Sundays, when I'm at midweek, when I'm having personal conversations with other members of the body. And so that's where I'm getting that from. But I'm also part of a men's group. And that's just an incredible way for me to build those personal relationships with other men who are part of our body, and we can challenge and grow together as men, as leaders of our households. We always joke, the joke is dads don't have friends, their wives have friends, and they have husbands. And that was certainly true for me, and so just being able to be part of a men's group and grow together and dive into the Word and challenge each other has really been an awesome thing, and I think our other groups of that nature would agree. But then we've also got the more family-oriented groups as well, and I think just both of those are really, really important for the life of the believer. To be able to be a part of that natural growth, because it's hard to build personal relationships with people when you show up on Sunday morning, like right as service is starting, and then you leave as soon as the music's over, and you never really spend time talking, sharing, praying together. And so, for me personally, I don't think that I could have nearly as much connection to the body. I couldn't use my spiritual gifts the way I do. I couldn't serve the way I do if I wasn't part of those groups throughout the week that keep me involved, keep me connected to other members of the body. And so that's one of the reasons that we offer so many classes, and it's not so that people can have something to do at church every single night of the week, because that's not good either. One of our concerns is that people will show up to church on Sunday, then they'll go to a life group on Monday, and then Tuesday, and then midweek on Wednesday, and then worship team on Thursday, and then something else on Friday, and then you're doing something 5, 6, 7 days a week at church. Well, then you're not discipling your family. You're not taking the gospel to the world, because all of your free time is at church, and you're not just fulfilling your calling as a believer. And so one of the things that we don't want is for people to just spend all of their time in small groups. But that being said, we also think it's incredibly important for believers to be tied and connected to the body and to be spending time with other believers. And for me, one of the things that's really important for our family, because we're involved with church-related activities probably about 5 nights a week. 5 days a week, I should say, including Sunday. And one of the realizations that Summer and I have come to over the last couple of years is just that it's not that we're doing those things and we're not we're not doing the other things that we're supposed to be doing. Our family discipleship, the way that we teach our kids and each other, that's done at bedtime, at kindergarten, at dinner over meals. We spend those times that we're spending anyway, that's our discipleship time. That's the time that we're investing in our family. When we have people over to our house for dinner, when we go out on date nights with people, that's the time that we're investing in really sharing the gospel with the world, and or at work or whatever. That's part of our natural life and part of the time that we're spending just in the world anyways. That's how we're getting that. Even though we're at church 5 nights a week, we're still spending a lot of time investing in others.
And when Michael's saying at church 5 nights a week, it's not always at church, it's with the church.
Right.
It's not always at the big house, but it's with the body. And one of the things we talk about often is the difference between this holistic, authentic, organic community and siloing. You know what siloing is? Some people live holistic, authentic, organic, just this life that everything is just all meshed together. Others silo their priorities. The problem with siloing your priorities is you'll always run out of time before you run out of priorities. And you'll always feel like you're dissing something. And so a lot of times we've in the 30 plus years that I've been in full-time ministry, you have people that are like, oh, we just don't have any family time. We're not going to come to this event because we haven't had time together as a family. Or we're not going to do this because we need to have a family night. Or we need to have a date night. Or, we've been running all week. We've not had any time with our family. Or church, we've been to church this many times, or you've spent too much time at work, you're not spending any time with the family. That's a lot of siloing going on, and so where we silo these priorities and then we try to rate them. But what Michael was describing is this just this reality that my family is the church and my family's with me in the church. So I'm spending time with my family when I'm with the church. I'm indirectly and directly pouring into my family. But this idea that when we get to church, and that's where we try hard not to segregate. Okay, all the kids go off here. Let's separate them from their parents and do that's why we're very intentional about trying. We have the tailgate. We want it to be a family event. Midweek, this last week, we just had a phenomenal week. Huge attendance and involvement at the tailgate. It was a great time. People that wanted to play, played. People that wanted to eat, ate. A lot of people didn't want to do anything but sit in a chair and talk. And they had the freedom to do that. It was really great. And then there were the butterflies that moved around from group to group, and there were those that stayed stationary like flowers. You come to me.
I learned the rules of Gaga ball.
Are you going to play next time?
I'm not going to play, but I
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. And I loved it. Now, again, I was the bee that was buzzing around and had about that much of a conversation with about half of the people. And then Wednesday night, we had our midweek family dinner. We had 91 here Wednesday night, which is about 2/3 of our Sunday morning attendance. 91. And it was chaos, wasn't it? I mean, kids everywhere, kids loud and noisy and food flying. But it was great. I loved it because we were together. The family was together with the family. The family of families was together. It was just really, really, really cool. And so be careful not to do this. Don't segregate yourself from your children when you get involved in something at church. There's times, MOPS and DOPS. There's child care, or one of the great things about our men's and our ladies groups that are meeting right now is we do have a lot of kids, and child care at groups is a challenging thing. And so one of the remedies to that is ladies have groups where they get to be together, and they just don't have to worry about child care because dads or grandparents are home with the kids. Or men get together and wives are home with the kids. So now, again, that doesn't mean that togetherness as a family is not a priority, but don't elevate one silo over the other. Don't neglect, but don't elevate. Realize it's a holistic, organic, authentic experience where you can be discipling, and you can be fellowshipping, and you can be worshiping, and you can be spending time with your spouse, and you can be spending time with your children, all in one swipe. We don't have to silo them off in different categories. Does it make sense? Yeah, Daniel.
So I guess I want to talk about student ministry for a few minutes and why we do what we do and how we do it. So student ministry is not, it's not, we don't create an environment that students just want to come and hang out and have fun. I grew up in a youth group that most of it was about hanging out, playing goofy games, and then throw a little Jesus in there, right? So it was all about trying to have this large swath of kids come in, and the more kids we could have in, the better, right? And it was all about having the high numbers, so we had to do all this fun stuff to attract them, and it was all about how can we attract students to come in so we can grow our youth group. And the philosophy we took when I started was trying to address some of the major issues when it comes to student ministry and what happens to those students once they graduate high school. And we're still seeing it today, and at the time, we saw a lot of our students that would graduate high school. They'd either go off to college, they'd go to work, whatever it might be, and then you really never see them again. And they'd never attend church again. If they did, it was years later once they had kids, and then they would want to bring their kids back. That's kind of been the trend that we see when it comes to youth ministry. So we wanted to address that because part of the problem was students are growing up in church, they're leaving youth ministry, and they're leaving the church because they don't understand their faith. They don't know why they believe what they believe, right? So a lot of students grow up, they believe, I'm a Christian because I grew up in a Christian household. It's either they're a Christian by association, or it's just what my parents did and what my parents taught me. And then as soon as they go to college and they're interacting with other people that have different ideas, different philosophies, different worldviews, those things can be very tempting. So if they don't have a solid faith before they leave the church to go off to college or what it may be, their faith is just shaken. And a lot of them lose it. So we still hold to the fact, like we do throughout the church, that the main discipling, teaching, raising up of students has to be done in the home. Parents have to be discipling their students if we hope to keep them connected to the church. But anybody that's had kids also knows, as parents, when you go to teach your children anything or you try to direct them in anything, they tend to do the very opposite thing. They don't like to listen to their parents very well. When parents give advice, you're just old and out of date and you don't know, right? That tends to be kind of the mentality that students take. So what we try to do in student ministry is we try to create an environment where relationships are built. We have an entire hour every Sunday that most of the time it's Gaga Ball. When the weather permits, it's Gaga Ball. But whether it's Gaga Ball, whether it's we play Mafia, whether we play Signs, whether we play whatever games that we play in that hour, we're very intentional about those things. Those things are about building relationships because students are going to find relationship with their peers one way or another. So we try to create an environment where they can build relationships with their peers, where they can build relationships with young adults and old people, and they can build relationships with people outside of their home, to where when parents are trying to help guide their children and your children are being stubborn, they have other outlets to go to say, hey, I'm struggling with this, I'm dealing with this, I don't want to tell my parents because I already know what they're going to say. So it gives them an outlet to be able to go and reach out to somebody that we know is going to take a biblical approach to whatever issue they're dealing with. And when it comes to teaching in student ministries, we're not about trying to teach about just simple world issues. We don't just talk about depression or dealing with bullying or peer pressure or whatever it might be, right? We really try to take a Bible-based approach. Because again, we believe that students, when they leave the church, hopefully they never leave the church, like Caleb. Thank you, Caleb.
Amen.
They break my heart every time they do. When they leave the church, they go to college, work, whatever it might be, that again, they understand the word that they claim to follow, that they have a deep understanding about what Scripture says about their world, about how they should interact with their world, about how we hit a lot on how we are not good people, that we're sinful people, every single one of us. And they live in a culture that wants to tell them, no matter who you are, no matter what people think is wrong with you, you just be you, and you'll be happy, and you'll get through life. Don't let anybody tell you that you're wrong in anything you do. And so we're battling these worldviews, so we try to take a biblical approach to teaching students to help build a biblical worldview. So it's all about relationships, and it's all about helping students understand Scripture and understand how their faith should change their lives.
So a couple questions for you, Daniel. Is Sunday night designed to be youth church?
Absolutely not. So Sunday night is no different than any other small group. The problem that we've gotten in, not me personally, but our youth group in the past has gotten into more when I was involved in youth. It becomes like our own little church. And it happens in a lot of different churches where youth group is kind of its own thing. They have their own worship services. They do their own events. Everything is kind of separate. And then students grow up, and you have to like say, all right, you're not a child anymore. You're not in high school. You can't keep coming to youth. And then they're like, well, what do I do? Where do I go? And if they're not connected to the body in some way other than youth, we lose them. So we're very intentional about encouraging students to get involved in ministry. We've had several on the worship team on Sunday mornings. We've had several in the booth. We have several that work in kids ministry. We have youth serving all over the church, and that's intentional because we believe, and it was my case that I think really the only reason I stayed at Crossroads was because I was connected in ministry. I was connected with people in the church. If I were just, y'all quit giggling, let me talk, I'm the one with the microphone, y'all shush, all right? So if it wasn't for involvement in ministry, if it wasn't involvement in relationships that actually meant something, I never would have been here. So that's really what we try to drive home, is that you may be students and you may think you're young and you may have people telling you, oh, you have the rest of your life to grow up and be an adult. That's hogwash. You're an adult now. You're a grown-up. Be part of the church. Invest in the church. So that's a big thing we push.
So we strongly encourage discipleship relationships
Right.
in the youth with our middle school and our high schoolers.
Right.
Is that intended to replace the parents as disciple makers?
No.
They're old, they're irrelevant, the kids don't want to listen to them. So
mean, that might be true,
What's the point of discipleship at
Again,
the youth level,
it's
in addition
the
to
same
parents?
thing as Sunday nights in general. It's about relationships, right? Because again, students may have parents. We have some students. I think right now most of our students have parents in the church, but we have several students that come in that their parents either aren't churched or they may be Christians, but they're not being discipled. So we have some of those gaps that we try to fill where parents maybe aren't present or aren't maybe doing what they should be doing. But what we try to do with our students that have parents in the church is we try to help facilitate parents, right? I try to send out information weekly to let parents know what we're doing so that you guys can have those conversations with students throughout the week. But I meet weekly with Corbin is one of them. I am not taking Sam's place as discipling Corbin, right? But I can have a different relationship with Corbin than Sam can. It's just, there may be things that Corbin, and every kid's different. I mean, some kids have great relationships with their parents, and some kids are just rebellious, and they don't want to talk to your parents, they don't want to be around their parents. So we try to help facilitate where he may not have conversations with Sam for whatever reason, but he's willing to have those with me. I can come along Corbin and help him through that situation, but also help try to build that gap of trust back to his parents to say, because we have students throughout that are like, they're struggling with this, they're arguing with their parents. We're kind of that gap that they come to. They say, I don't know, my parents won't let me do this. They don't let me do this. They just make me mad. They're so frustrating. And we're kind of that sounding board where they can let their frustrations out, but we're also able to say, all right, let's go back and see what Scripture says about how you treat your parents in this. So it's really just kind of that outlet for students that hopefully we can kind of bring them back around to let's handle this in a biblical way.
Yeah. And as they're moving into the adult world, they're learning how to have relationships with other adults outside of their parents. And so we really hope that our youth staff, and we've got them at various ages, some are getting a little long in the tooth, and others are, just barely out of youth. And so there's various ages represented even among our youth volunteers that our kids can build relationships with. Yeah, that's great. We're closing in on being out of time. You want to talk about worship? How we're intentional with our worship and the songs that we do?
So when it comes to worship, like Daryl said, we're very intentional. I don't have much experience outside of Crossroads. I've been coming to Crossroads since 8th grade. I grew up listening, learning to worship here, joined the worship team, and then kind of into leading the worship team. So I don't have a lot of context outside of Crossroads, but my philosophy when it comes to worship is pretty simple. Again, we look for our songs to be scripturally based. There are a lot of good Christian songs. I say good because some of you like them. I don't want to offend you, but they're all horrible. K-Love, garbage. No, I like to pick on people. Anybody that knows me, I'm a music snob, so I'm very picky about my music. And that's the same when it comes to worship. We don't sing songs about like a lot of songs that are about my value and Jesus loves me, I'm a sparkling diamond, and because it's not about us, right? We don't come to worship on a Sunday so that we can sing about how great we are, but because God saved us, and right, really our worship tries to be God focused, right? And there has to be a scriptural foundation to the songs we sing. So I'm very picky about songs we sing because I literally want us to be able to, as a church, come together and sing the Word of God out together. I want us to be able to experience God's truth through the words that we sing on a Sunday, so that hopefully throughout the week we're in the Word, we're meditating on the Word, and we come together and we can express that through the music that we sing on a Sunday.
So I'm going to put Daniel on the spot. We didn't talk about this. We've talked about it, but we didn't talk about it for this morning. Daniel, some of the songs that we do are written, published, recorded under labels of churches or ministries that we wouldn't necessarily endorse them doctrinally.
Right.
The songs are good. The songs are robust. The songs we believe are doctrinally sound, but we wouldn't necessarily recommend people going and checking out that church or that ministry.
Right.
You want to talk about that for just a minute?
Right. Yeah,
And why we do
and
that?
it is kind of controversial because there's some churches that believe music from those churches, they should not be in your church at all. I disagree to a certain extent. But again, all of our songs are vetted. There have been several songs that I've listened to from certain churches, and just reading the words, they're confusing. Like they don't make sense, and I'm like, I don't know where in Scripture they get any of this basis for these lyrics. And we've sat down as elders to say, okay, what does this even mean? Like, I love the song, I love the melody, the beat. Like, it's a great song. It sounds good, but lyrically, it makes no sense. So we vet those things very thoroughly, doctrinally. So we would look at some of those churches and say, I would not go to that church. I would not listen to that pastor's preaching. They have some doctrine that is just not, we just don't hold to the same belief. But some of their music is doctrinally solid. There's just nothing wrong lyrically with it. And we believe in the context of our church and what we believe, it fits well. And it's powerful and it speaks the truth of God in our context. So we are very, very careful about what songs we choose from where and kind of the context they write them in as well.
Yeah, and especially if they're coming from one of those ministries. A couple in particular would be like Elevation Worship. They would have at one time, the pastor and the church would have been much better aligned with us doctrinally than they are now. They've kind of gone off into some things we don't believe are biblical. And then I don't know that what's the one, Bethel.
Bethel, yeah.
Bethel music or Bethel worship. I don't know that they ever doctrinally aligned with us. But, sometimes even wicked people get something right, Yeah. and the song can be powerful. And, the Holy Spirit, God, and the church can use money that you made off of a lottery ticket and use it for God's glory just because it initiated. But again, we're really careful with that. But if we crossed out every song whose author or authorship we disagreed with, man, a lot of the hymns I don't agree with Martin Luther doctrinally on everything, and he wrote some hymns. I don't agree with Charles Wesley on everything, and yet I love some of the hymns that Charles Wesley wrote. So again, when those songs come up, we weigh them very carefully. We don't do them because that group did them, and we don't encourage you to go research Elevation Worship and to start following their teachings or to go research Bethel. And now, again, research, and I think you'll find what we've found is they're not doctrinally sound. But that doesn't necessarily mean that songs that have been written under their label are not doctrinally sound.
Yeah, the argument for people that say we shouldn't do that music in our church because of their doctrinal positions, their argument is that you play this song by this group, and then from what I've heard, it's specifically younger people they're worried about. Younger people that are like, ooh, I really like this song, I'm going to go check it out. They get into the church, they start figuring out what this church believes, and they're drawn into false doctrine through that chain of events. Now, and the arguments I've heard from that, and that pastor's context is they live in the areas close to those churches. So they see a lot of young people go to those churches from theirs. We're not so much worried about our students or young people from here moving to California to go join a church. It's possible, but we also believe that if we have young people or we have people in our church that are leaving here to go follow false doctrine, then we've failed as pastors. If because we play a song on a Sunday morning, people are just being swept into false doctrine, what are we doing?
Like giving people enough credit, like give them a chance to use some logic and test it.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree that it's definitely one of the objections, but the biggest objection is how it's presented. And here it's not presented in the emotional,
Right.
Right.
experiential way in which most of those
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
way, not necessarily songs.
That's good.
Right. And there are a lot of songs.
We all do these songs, we have these big, long, empty spots, they're just big, long, empty spots, where they will just say what they call it? Free worship or spontaneous worship.
Yeah.
In most cases, you'll find that most of you do spontaneous worship decide before the worship what they're going to do during that spontaneous
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that people understand that it's not just the words
Sure.
that make it wrong. It's how you
It's the package.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about intention. It's all about heart.
drawing you into an experiential environment instead of a righteous or holy environment.
Yeah. And Daniel, and this may be good. Has this been beneficial to y'all? I mean, there's just a lot of things you can't talk about on, you just don't, there's not time to talk about them in the 10:30 service. So I hope it's beneficial. We may carry this out to next week and then do a Q&A at the end, because we've got about 5 other areas that we'd like to talk about, why we do what we do. But we are out of time. But maybe next week, let's maybe recap this and just talk about even your plan for how you plan a service and the flow of a service, and in the temple format. So yeah, good stuff. All right, so we'll finish this up next week. We are not sure yet what we're going to do for the next 6 weeks, because we have given up one of our spaces that when we do the breakouts. The upper room is no longer available at 9:30. So we only have this space, my living room, and the conference room available to us now to do breakouts. And so we haven't decided quite yet what we're going to do with that. So we'll keep y'all posted. Where can you find that? There you go. God bless y'all. You're dismissed.